Tell you who better to have on, Councilwoman Laurie White Adams. Oh, like I said in the tease going into break, the mayor had her State of the City address on Wednesday. Here to kind of unpack a little bit of that is Councilwoman Laurie White Adams. Laurie, good morning. Happy Mardi Gras. How are you?
Happy Mardi Gras. Good morning, Brian. Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Now, glad to have you on here. So you were at the Rotary Club on Wednesday as well.
I was, yeah.
And you heard the speech.
Packed house.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Very packed house.
Yeah.
So let's do a little bit of talking about the speech. What were a few of the high points that you saw?
Sure. So just, full disclosure, I'm a very optimistic person. So the mayor's theme of Red Stick Rising, definitely spoke to my optimistic nature and my deep hope that, that things are turning around and that we're making great strides here. So, I thought her focus on the positives in our parish was good. And that was the first half of the speech. And the back half of the speech was public safety.
Yeah.
And I thought you felt, something change in the room. And we talked about public safety. You could feel a heaviness in the room and that a lot of people in that room are very concerned about public safety issues.
I have the chief on every month, and it's always a tough spot to talk about because when numbers drop, you want to talk about numbers dropping.
Right.
But when you have, 115 homicides over the course of a year, you can't really brag on that. Like, it's not something that you can tell. It's not a victory.
Right, yeah.
So, the drop, the 21% reduction in homicides within the city limits, that, noting that number while still saying it's ridiculous out there.
Right.
So
we're happy for any improvements.
Right.
And of course, certainly, one thing I've had people tell me is we have great, medical care. We have great emergency medical care here. And so really a better measurement than homicides is shootings.
Yeah. Well,
because
and
our doctors are really good at saving people, which is terrific. But shootings would be a better indication of just the level of violence in the communities.
I want to say non-fatals were down as well, though, right?
Okay.
23% reduction in homicides in 2022, 14% reduction in non-fatal shootings as well. So both of those numbers were down a bit.
Heading in the right direction.
Right.
We need to do more.
Absolutely. From the Metro Council standpoint, what can y'all be doing?
So I think the things we can be doing are continuing to look at the laws, to continue to look at our ordinances to make sure that they're working. So you're going to see, in fact, you'll see on Wednesday's agenda that we've placed the revision of the hotel motel ordinance. It wasn't working. So all the great intentions from the last council to really address violence and crime in hotels and motels in the area. We learned that the ordinance that was passed was too clunky, chunky. It was too difficult I know I did look at it. I know it's confusing, but it was just too narrowly focused, and it was really, really difficult to enforce. So we've come back. We've taken a data-driven approach, and you're going to see a more streamlined and a more effective ordinance. So those are the things we can be doing, looking at where we haven't we've missed the mark and where we're
okay. So this could be a multi-part question, and I know you're not going to have the answers for it yet, but do we know what it's going to look like on the other side?
With hotels and motels?
Yeah.
Sure. Yes, absolutely. So as far as the ordinance, we're changing it from a calls for service, a numbered calls for service 3, 4, 5 within a certain time period, and going to, like I said, a data-driven approach, a ratio of calls to rooms. So, 3 calls in a month for a big hotel that has 300 rooms is not a big deal, may not be a big deal.
Right.
3 calls for a hotel that has 20 rooms, it's a whole different thing, right? So we're going to go to a ratio of 0.5 calls per service per room over the course of a year.
Oh, wow. Okay. Now, when it comes to enforcement, you can have hotels shut down or motels shut down.
Sure.
So
it's not where you want to start.
No, it's not where you want to start, but it's not a jump to say it's going to come to that. Especially when I'll call their names out. The OYO properties, the one off of Airline and the one off of Sherwood, those two get the most calls out there. So my question's about the unintended consequences here, because when it comes to these calls, the overwhelming majority of them are about drugs or start with drugs somehow. Even if they're about violence, they started with drugs. If you've got something that's not addressing supply or demand of drug trade, it's just shutting down a business. Are we not just relocating the crime? Like if you shut down the OYO, does it just move over to the sleep in?
Yeah, it could. It definitely could. So what you're trying to do is work with these hotel owners. It gives you leverage to work with the hotel owners to get them to clean up their act or help work alongside the city to clean up their act. And so that can be installing cameras and doing, the mayor talked about it, the Connect Blue VR program. So it can be working with the Visit Baton Rouge or the Hotel and Motel Lodging Association to put in best practices. It can be training clerks. I mean, you've got to start somewhere, and you've got to start really everywhere, decreasing crime and just sending a message that it's not okay here in Baton Rouge. We're not open for crime. We're open for business, but we're not open for crime.
Absolutely, and we don't want to ruin other business by affecting these businesses. Now, you say it's got to start somewhere. I think the argument can be made that it's got to start with the hotel motel owner. So what's the buy-in been like so far? Have you heard from them? Have they been participatory in the process?
The Hotel and Motel Association and Visit Baton Rouge have been at the table to help us with this.
The associations, yes, but I don't know.
The individual hotel owners have a lot on their hands. Okay. But I would tell you, these organizations are working with those owners.
Okay. Well, yeah, Visit Baton Rouge. So I'm a huge fan of Visit Baton Rouge.
Great job.
Have been a fan of Paul for a long time, and Jill is going to crush it this year. I have no doubt. Yes, absolutely. But when it trickles all the way down to the property level, I think that's where I'm curious to see where the level of participation is going to be.
You know, certainly everybody wants to see all businesses be successful. We want to see these businesses be successful. And it's just helping connect them with tools, best practices, and encouraging encouraging them to be their best, but also knowing that may not always be the case. Every business may not be savable, right?
Councilwoman Laurie White Adams is our guest. We're talking about just kind of unpacking a little bit of the mayor's State of the City address from Wednesday. Let's talk about infrastructural. Actually, let's talk drainage first.
Sure.
Because that was a big topic towards the end of last year.
It was.
I talked to the mayor about it. She was on yesterday.
Yeah.
And I was like, I basically said this was handled poorly to be pretty certain.
Right.
And to her credit, she's like, yeah, it could have been better. We could have done a much better job of it.
Yeah.
Where do we pick from EBR Metro Council standpoint? Where do we pick up from here with stormwater drainage?
Sure. So there, of course, there's a lot of work to be done. And right now, we were still kind of unpacking what happened last fall, trying to make sure that we fully understand, have a FOIA request into the federal government for the audit that is kind of the genesis of, a lot of what's going on. And haven't gotten a copy of that yet. So there's a lot of data collection going on in my part. But looking forward, I mean, we can't flinch. We know we have stormwater issues.
Yeah.
Not only with our MS4 permit and DEQ and the federal government, but also just general management. Quantity of water, not necessarily quality of water. I think we're making strides. We're certainly making strides with the ARPA dollars in my district. So there are a number of drains that I literally go out when it's raining and go watch the drains and make sure that they're draining and things are draining. So the clean out has made a difference. There are a number of our tributaries are being cleaned out right now, a number of them in my district. All these things are helping. It's not immediate. It's an incremental change. But so we're heading in the right direction. We just have to keep pushing. And then we're going to have to come up with a plan to deal with our stormwater quality issues, and it's gonna take a collaborative effort across the board, not only the council but the mayor's office and really citizens as well.
And that's the part that I think keeps getting just brushed past, because as soon as you say stormwater, we're thinking getting water out before we flood again, like we did in 2016, right?
That's right.
But the cleanliness of it as well
matters.
Not being polluted and whatnot, because that's where the EPA gets involved.
That's right.
The EPA doesn't care if we flood. The EPA cares if the water is dirty.
That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah, and that's where contractors, builders, businesses, everybody comes in. Homeowners. We all have responsibility for it. We can't just kind of just go blindly through our days anymore. We've got to think, where am I going to place this styrofoam cup? Where am I going to place this can? I've got to get it into a receptacle. Can I allow my yard man to blow the clippings into the street? No, I've got to tell him absolutely not. You've got to mulch with those, or you're going to have to bag them. Can I not have proper stormwater control measures on a job site where a home or a business is being built? No, that contractor has got to have the proper
I
measures.
What we're seeing now, Councilwoman Laurie White Adams is our guest. I think what we're seeing now is the result of it was a hot topic last decade. Sprawl. We weren't built via city plan. We were built piecemeal.
Right, sure.
So what we're seeing now is the repercussions of all that, because all 12 of our Metro Council districts have a different layout.
True.
Different best practices based off of the time they went up.
Yep.
I mean, and trying to put all that back together to come up with something that's uniform is not the easiest thing to do.
Absolutely. And we are jammed up against a hard boundary. The Mississippi River is a hard boundary. It changes. I think that changes also the way that we tend to sprawl.
The A meets on the other side. You never think about how we're pretty much
we're lodged in between.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Exactly.
It's complex. It is harder here. Our rainfall, it's harder here. But it doesn't mean that we flinch and don't face the challenge. It just means it takes more of us, and it takes more thoughtful work and harder work.
Got a couple minutes left with Councilwoman Laurie White Adams. Let's talk blight for a second, because this is another area where the Metro Council can have a very hands-on role in making things better. The mayor talked a little bit about it, and I'm looking for it in the report here. She talked a little bit about it, didn't get too deep into the weeds, but here we go. A $4.5 million blight initiative partnering with local small businesses to remove condemned structures, mow tall grass, and clear junk from dozens of private properties in East Baton Rouge.
Right.
When it comes to the Metro Council, how do y'all balance the private property versus the public good?
So these private properties go through, is my understanding, these go through a process. So, I mean, I've actually had some of this take place in my district. I mean, you have a home that burns and the homeowner never does anything to that home. Just that burned out home sits there. Animals start to take residence. I mean, that's a major problem for the neighboring homeowners. There is a legal process that you can go through that then you are able to take action with that property for the health, safety, and welfare of the community. So that's what you'll see.
What happens to the property? Like, does the owner lose ownership, or
no? The lien. My understanding is that a lien is attached to the property for the cost of the cleanup.
Gotcha.
And then the owner retains ownership of that property unless there's a separate process that takes place. And that's one of the things the administration is working on too. There's some blight in our community that is just too difficult to clear title on, and so they're designing a new process by which you can start to clear title on some of these properties. So we have a number of properties that are just literally out of commerce. They're fallow. Nobody can do anything with them because of legal issues. And so the administration is working on trying to come up with a process to clear those titles so that those properties can come back into commerce. That's never good. Never good to have properties that can't be
No,
used.
I know. It's not good for us as a city, but it's certainly not good for the value of the neighbor's property as well.
It's terrible.
We got less than a minute to go with Councilwoman Laurie White Adams. Your number one goal for this year is what?
My number one goal for this year is collaboration and hard work.
Okay.
Those are the things. I mean, we've got a lot of issues to address. It'd be hard to pick any one issue because all of our challenges are really important. So it's just to continue every morning, wake up, hit it hard.
She is Councilwoman Laurie White Adams. We always appreciate your time. I thank you for coming in this morning.
Thank you,
we got to get you to CBS News.